I sat in the sterile white hallway of Pacific Northwest Medical Center, staring at the paper in my trembling hands. The pathology report confirmed what Dr. Rivera had gently prepared me for earlier. Stage 3, breast cancer. My mind was racing with questions about treatment plans, survival rates, and how much time I would need to take off work. But in that moment, one thought eclipsed all others. I needed to call Ryan. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. I dialed his number, my husband of 7 years, the man who had promised to stand by me in sickness and in health. His voice was distant when he answered, distracted. I took a deep breath and said the words I never thought I'd have to say. It's cancer, Ryan. Stage 3. The silence on the other end stretched for what felt like eternity. When he finally spoke, his response wasn't what I had expected, not even close. I'll be home late tonight. We can talk about it then. That was it. No shock, no comfort, no rush to be by my side. Just logistics. Looking back, I should have known then that something was terribly wrong. But I was too consumed by my own diagnosis to see that my marriage was already terminal. What I didn't know then, what I couldn't have imagined, was that, within 6 weeks as I lay weakened from my second round of chemotherapy, Ryan would pack his bags and walk out our front door. His parting words would echo in my mind for months to come. "This is too much work, Emma. I didn't sign up for this." He left me to face cancer alone. That was 16 months ago. Now, as I stand in front of the coffee shop where we're scheduled to meet, I'm no longer the same woman he abandoned. My hair has grown back, shorter and surprisingly darker than before. My body bears the scars of survival. And my heart. Well, my heart has learned to beat perfectly fine without him. Which makes his recent text message all the more perplexing. "Emma, I need your help. Please. It's urgent." The universe, it seems, has quite the sense of irony. My earliest memory of Ryan Taylor is from a rainy Tuesday evening at Powell's Books in downtown Portland. I was browsing through the marketing section when a tall figure reached over me to grab a business strategy book from the top shelf. He smiled and apologized for invading my space. His eyes were kind, crinkled at the corners when he smiled. We ended up talking for hours over coffee, the rain pattering against the windows, creating this perfect little bubble around us. "You're different, Emma," he told me that night. "You know exactly who you are." It was the first of many compliments. That made me feel seen. Special. Ryan had a talent for that, making you feel like you were the only person in the room, like you mattered. 7 years later, standing in our bedroom as he packed his suitcase, those memories felt like they belonged to someone else. Some other couple in some alternate universe where vows actually meant something. "You can't just leave," I said, leaning against the doorframe for support. My body was so weak from chemo that standing upright required conscious effort. The metallic taste in my mouth hadn't subsided in days. "We're supposed to be partners, Ryan." He didn't look at me as he methodically folded his expensive button-downs. "I've been thinking about this for a while, Emma, even before." His voice trailed off, unwilling to say the word cancer out loud, as if my disease was somehow more shameful than his abandonment. "Before what? Before your wife got sick and actually needed you to step up?" My voice cracked, betraying the emotion I was desperately trying to contain. Ryan finally met my gaze, and what I saw there wasn't guilt or shame. It was relief. Relief to be unburdening himself. "You don't understand what this is like for me," he said, zipping his suitcase, closed with finality. "Watching you suffer. Coming home to this every day. The appointments, the medications, the mood swings from the chemo. It's too much work. I didn't sign up for this version of our life. I didn't sign up for this version of our life." as if cancer had been my choice, a lifestyle decision I'd made to inconvenience him. In sickness and in health, I whispered. That's literally what you signed up for. He sighed, the sound of someone who felt unfairly judged. People say things at weddings, Emma. Nobody actually expects. He stopped himself, perhaps hearing how callous the words sounded. But it was too late. The truth was out. Ryan dragged his suitcase off the bed. I've taken an apartment downtown. I'll send for the rest of my things. He reached into his pocket and placed a credit card on the IE dresser. Use this for whatever you need. Medical bills, groceries, whatever. I'm not a monster. Not a monster. Just a man walking out on his cancer-stricken wife because she had become inconvenient. Because she required care instead of providing it. Because cancer had transformed her from an asset to a liability in his carefully curated life. I didn't cry when he left. I was too stunned, too focused on the basic mechanics of survival. The next round of chemo was scheduled for Thursday. I needed to figure out who would drive me now. I needed to call the insurance company to make sure my coverage wouldn't be affected. I needed to eat something, even though nothing stayed down these days. It wasn't until later that night, as I lay alone in our bed, now just my bed, that the tears finally came. Not delicate, dignified tears, but ugly, gasping sobs that racked my weakened body. I cried for the marriage I thought I had, for the partner who was supposed to be my shelter in the storm, not the one who ran at the first sign of rain. For the future we had planned together, now evaporated like morning mist. When the tears finally subsided, I was left with a curious emptiness. And in that emptiness, a tiny voice whispered, maybe this is for the best. Maybe now you can focus entirely on healing without worrying about his disappointment, his discomfort, his needs. I didn't know it then, but that little voice was right. Ryan's departure, painful as it was, would turn out to be one of the best things that ever happened to me. Not because being abandoned during cancer treatment was some kind of blessing. It wasn't. It was cruel and traumatic. But because it forced me to discover a strength I never knew I possessed. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. It was Sophia, my best friend since college, checking in. Did you tell him? Her text read. I stared at the screen, fingers hovering over the keyboard. How to compress this earthquake into a text message? Finally, I simply wrote, he's gone, left me, said I'm too much work. 3 dots appeared immediately, then disappeared, then appeared again. Finally, her response came through. I'm coming over. Now, pack a bag. You're staying with me until further notice. Before I could protest, another text. This is not a negotiation, Emma. And that was how, on the night my husband walked out, I found myself sitting at Sophia Chen's kitchen table, wrapped in a blanket, sipping ginger tea to settle my nauseous stomach. Sophia moved around her kitchen with purposeful energy, making up the guest room, calling my doctor to update my emergency contact information, creating a shared calendar for my treatment schedule. We're going to get through this, she said, her dark eyes fierce with determination. All of it. The cancer and the Ryan-sized bullet you just dodged. I managed a weak smile. I don't think you're supposed to call your friend's husband leaving. Her during chemo, a bullet dodged. Sophia sat down across from me, taking my cold hands in her warm ones. Listen to me, Emma Taylor. Any man who walks out when things get hard isn't a man worth keeping. You deserve better. And when you're cancer-free, because you will be, you'll see that this was actually a gift. He showed you who he really is before you wasted more years on him. I wasn't ready to see it as a gift. Not yet. But having Sophia's unwavering support was like finding a life raft in stormy seas. For the next several weeks, her guest room became my sanctuary. She drove me to every appointment, held my hair back when I vomited after treatments, and never once made me feel like I was too much work. Other friends stepped up too, creating a meal train so that fresh food appeared at Sophia's door like clockwork. My colleagues at the marketing agency where I worked arranged for me to take on remote projects that I could handle during my better days, allowing me to maintain some professional identity when everything else in my life felt unrecognizable. It wasn't just friends. Dr. Natalie Rivera, my oncologist, became another pillar of support. Unlike other doctors who maintained professional distance, Dr. Rivera really saw me, as a woman going through both cancer and abandonment simultaneously. "The body keeps score, Emma," she told me during one appointment, when my blood counts were lower than expected. "Emotional trauma affects physical healing. What your husband did to you isn't just cruel, it's medically relevant." She recommended a support group specifically for women dealing with cancer-related relationship issues. "You'd be surprised how common your situation is," she said, her voice gentle but matter-of-fact. "Cancer has a way of revealing people's true characters. Some rise to the occasion. Others, well, they show their limitations." I attended my first support group meeting reluctantly, certain I would have nothing in common with these strangers, beyond our shared cells. I was wrong. Listening to other women's stories, some eerily similar to mine, others even more heartbreaking, created a strange sort of comfort. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. There was Diane, whose fiancé postponed their wedding indefinitely after her diagnosis. Maria, whose husband of 20 years began an affair with their children's nanny while she underwent radiation. Jennifer, whose girlfriend simply ghosted her after the first surgery. We were a sorority none of us had ever wanted to join, bound together by the dual betrayals of our bodies and our loved ones. Yet in that church basement, sipping lukewarm coffee from styrofoam cups, I found something. I desperately needed perspective. "At least he was honest," said Diane one evening, after I'd shared particularly hurtful details about Ryan's departure. "My ex kept saying he was coming back, that he just needed space. Had me hanging on for months before I finally got the message." Maria nodded sagely. "Clean breaks heal better. Trust me on this." They were right, I realized. Ryan's cruelty had been absolute, but it had also been clarifying. There were no mixed signals, no false hope. He had shown me exactly who he was, freeing me from any lingering illusions about our marriage. 3 months into my treatment, as my body waged war against both the cancer and the chemicals meant to cure it, divorce papers arrived. Ryan had been efficient, as always. The settlement was generous on paper. He would continue paying the mortgage on our house for 1 year, cover my health insurance through COBRA for the maximum allowed period, and provide a lump sum that, under normal circumstances, might have seemed fair. But these weren't normal circumstances. I was fighting for my life, unable to work full-time, facing medical bills that accumulated despite insurance. The generous settlement revealed a fundamental truth. Ryan saw our relationship as a transaction. His guilt could be assuaged with money. My worth could be calculated and paid off. My first instinct was to sign the papers immediately, to sever all ties with the man who had deemed me disposable. But Sophia urged caution. "At least talk to a lawyer first," she insisted. "You're making decisions while traumatized and literally on drugs, Em. Give yourself a beat." She was right, of course. The consultation with Sandra, a divorce attorney specializing in cases involving illness, was eye-opening. "This settlement is inadequate considering the circumstances," Sandra said, reviewing the documents through reading glasses perched on her nose. "He left you specifically because of your health crisis. That's relevant. Oregon courts take a dim view of spouses who abandon partners during illness." I shifted uncomfortably in my seat. "I don't want to drag this out. I just want him gone from my life." Sandra's expression softened. "I understand that, Emma. But your future self will thank you for securing the resources you need right now. This isn't about punishing him. It's about protecting you. We negotiated a significantly better settlement. Ryan, eager to extricate himself cleanly and quickly, agreed to the amended terms without much pushback. The house would remain mine, with the mortgage paid in full. My medical expenses would be covered for 5 years. The financial security this provided was undeniable, but the real value was in what it represented, an acknowledgement, however reluctant, that what he had done was wrong. The divorce was finalized 6 months after Ryan walked out, just as I was completing my last round of chemotherapy. On paper, I was now both single and cancer-free, though follow-up treatments and monitoring would continue for years. Both statuses felt surreal, like clothes that didn't quite fit yet. "We should celebrate," Sophia declared when the final papers came through. "Both the divorce and your last chemo, a clean slate party." I wasn't sure I had the energy for a party, but I understood the importance of marking these transitions. So on a crisp autumn evening, a small group gathered in Sophia's backyard, which she had transformed with string lights and patio heaters to ward off the October chill. My support group friends were there, along with colleagues who had kept me tethered to normality through remote work opportunities. Dr. Rivera came too, out of her white coat and into jeans and a sweater, looking like a different person entirely. Standing among these people who had carried me through the darkest period of my life, I felt a wave of gratitude so intense it nearly buckled my knees. These were the people who had seen me at my absolute worst, bawled, vomiting, weeping, raging, and had stayed. Not because of wedding vows or legal obligations, but because of something purer, genuine care. "I want to make a toast," I said, raising my glass of sparkling cider. Alcohol was still on my restricted list. "To all of you. When Ryan left, I thought I was alone. But I wasn't. I had all of you. And it turns out that's better than having one person who doesn't really want to be there." Faces smiled back at me, eyes glistening with shared emotion. We had been through a war together, these people and I, and we had won. That night, back in the house that was now truly mine, I sat at my desk and opened my laptop. During treatment, I had been too exhausted to work full-time, but I had managed to keep my skills sharp by taking on small freelance marketing projects. Now, staring at the screen, an idea began to take shape. What if I started my own agency? One specializing in healthcare communication, leveraging both my professional expertise and my personal experience as a patient. The thought was simultaneously terrifying and exhilarating. I had always been good at my job, but had lacked the confidence to strike out on my own. Ryan had subtly discouraged it too, hinting that the stability of my agency job was important for our future plans. But now I had stared down cancer. I had survived abandonment. Starting a business seemed like a manageable challenge by comparison. I began to type, ideas flowing faster than my fingers could capture them. By dawn, I had the outline of a business plan. I called it Phoenix Marketing, for obvious reasons. Over the next few months, as my body slowly recovered from the ravages of treatment, Phoenix Marketing took flight. I started small, with clients I had built relationships with over the years who were willing to take a chance on my new venture. My unique perspective as both a marketing professional and a recent cancer patient gave me insights that larger agencies couldn't match. Dr. Rivera became an unexpected ally, connecting me with medical practices and pharmaceutical companies looking to improve their patient communication. "Most medical marketing is terrible," she told me bluntly. "It's either fear-mongering or so sanitized it's meaningless. We need someone who understands both sides of the equation." By the 1-year anniversary of my diagnosis, Phoenix Marketing had 6 regular clients and a growing reputation for authentic, patient-centered campaigns. I had hired 2 part-time employees and was considering bringing on a third. The business wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. My personal recovery followed a similar trajectory. though with more complex terrain. There were still bad days, days when fatigue hit like a truck, when phantom pain sparked momentary terror of recurrence, when memories of Ryan's betrayal surfaced unexpectedly. But these days grew fewer and farther between. The support group remained a constant, evolving from a lifeline to a genuine community. We celebrated each other's milestones, clear scans, new relationships, career achievements. We supported each other through setbacks too. When Maria's cancer returned, we organized a schedule to ensure she was never alone during treatments. When Jennifer lost her mother to the same disease she herself had survived, we surrounded her with care. And then there was Dr. Rivera, who had crossed the line from doctor to friend. During one of our now regular coffee meetups, she presented me with a small handcrafted wooden box. "This is for you," she said, sliding it across the table. "Open it when you're alone." Later that evening, I lifted the box's lid to find it filled with small, folded papers. Each contained a handwritten note from one of Dr. Rivera's former patients who had survived not just cancer, but profound life changes that came with it. Divorces, career pivots, geographic relocations. Each note offered a glimpse into a future beyond survival, into actual thriving. "5 years out and happier than I ever was before," wrote one woman. "Cancer showed me what, and who, really matters." I kept the box on my nightstand, reading one note each night before bed, collecting breadcrumbs that led toward a future I was still struggling to imagine. It was around this time that news about Ryan began filtering back to me through mutual acquaintances. His financial advising practice was booming, apparently. He and Megan Wilson, yes, there had been a Megan, a beautiful pharmaceutical sales rep he had met through a client, waiting in the wings when he left me, had moved in together. They had been spotted looking at engagement rings. The information stung, but not as badly as I might have expected. In truth, Ryan's rapid relationship progression confirmed what part of me had always suspected. His leaving had never really been about the burden of my illness. That was just the excuse. He had wanted out, and my cancer had provided convenient justification. "Are you okay?" Sophia asked carefully, after accidentally mentioning that she had seen Ryan and Megan at a restaurant downtown. "We don't have to talk about him." I considered the question seriously. Was I okay? "Yes," I said finally, realizing with mild surprise that it was true. "I'm okay. What he does now has nothing to do with me." And it didn't. My life was full, with work that mattered, with friends who had proven their loyalty, with a sense of purpose born from suffering. Ryan was a character in my past, not a presence in my present. Or so I thought, until the message arrived, 16 months after he walked out of our bedroom with his suitcase. "Emma, I need your help. Please. It's urgent." I stared at my phone, a strange numbness spreading through my chest. After all this time, after everything, he had the audacity to ask for my help? My thumb hovered over the delete button. That would be the sensible response. Delete the message, block his number. Continue building the life I had painstakingly constructed from the ashes he had left behind. But curiosity, or perhaps something deeper, some unresolved piece of our shared history, made me type a reply. "What kind of help?" His response came quickly. "Can we meet? In person. It's complicated." I shouldn't have agreed. Every friend, every therapist, every support group member would have advised against it. But some questions can only be answered face to face. So I suggested neutral ground, a coffee shop downtown, public enough to feel safe, anonymous enough, for privacy. "Tomorrow at 2, I wrote. "I have a meeting at 3, so this will need to be brief." The boundaries felt important to establish immediately. This was not a reunion. This was not forgiveness. This was... Well, I wasn't sure yet, but I would give him 30 minutes of my time, if only to finally close this chapter for good. As I stand now outside the coffee shop, watching through the window as Ryan fidgets nervously at a corner table, I feel an unexpected sense of calm. The man waiting inside once had the power to devastate me with a single sentence. This is too much work. But that power is gone now, dissolved by time and by my own hard-won strength. Whatever he needs, whatever crisis has driven him to reach, out after all this time, it cannot touch the core of who I have become. I push open the door, the little bell announcing my arrival. Ryan looks up, his face a complex map of emotions I can no longer read. Or perhaps I never could. "Emma," he says, standing awkwardly as I approach. "Thank you for coming." I slide into the seat across from him, setting my phone on the table, screen up, a subtle reminder of my ticking clock. "You said it was urgent," I reply, my voice steady and neutral. "So, what do you need?" "You look good," Ryan says, his eyes scanning my face as if searching for traces of the illness that had once ravaged my body. "Healthy." I resist the urge to touch my hair, now grown into a pixie cut that I've decided to keep. "That's generally what happens when cancer goes into remission," I reply, keeping my tone neutral. "What's this about, Ryan?" He shifts in his seat, fingers drumming nervously on the tabletop. The confident financial advisor I had married seems diminished somehow, shadows under his eyes, his normally impeccable appearance slightly rumpled. "I've been following your success," he says, changing the subject. "Phoenix Marketing. It's impressive. What you've built." "Ryan." My patience is already wearing thin. "You didn't ask me here to discuss my business." He sighs, shoulders slumping. "No, I didn't." He takes a sip of his coffee, grimacing as if it's gone cold. "There's no easy way to say this, so I'll just say it. I'm in trouble, Emma. Serious trouble." "What kind of trouble?" I ask, though I already have my suspicions. "Financial trouble? Legal trouble?" His voice drops to almost a whisper. "The kind that could end with me in prison." I sit back, absorbing this information. Ryan, who had always been so careful, so meticulous about his professional reputation. Ryan, who had once lectured me about the importance of maintaining perfect credit. Ryan, who had walked away from our marriage because cancer treatment was too much work, now facing consequences that could strip away his freedom. "Explain," I say simply. "Marcus and I, we—" He pauses, glancing around the coffee shop, as if worried about being overheard. "We took some liberties with client funds, not stealing," he adds quickly, seeing my expression. "Just borrowing. Moving things around to cover some investment losses. We were going to put it all back." "But you didn't," I finish for him. He shakes his head miserably. "The investments kept tanking. We got in deeper trying to recover. And now there's an audit. The SEC is involved. It's bad, Emma." "And Megan?" I ask, unable to help myself. "Where is she in all this?" A flush creeps up Ryan's neck. "She left 3 weeks ago, said she didn't sign up for this." The irony of her using his own words isn't lost on either of us. "So that's why you reached out, because your girlfriend left and you've got no one else." The words come out sharper than I intended, but I don't apologize. "That's not—" He stops, reconsidering. "Partly, yes, but it's more than that. I need your help specifically, Emma. You're the only one who can help me." I find that hard to believe. "It's true," he insists, leaning forward. "Your new company. You've got connections in healthcare now, pharmaceutical companies, medical practices. I need an introduction to Westlake Pharmaceuticals." I stare at him, incredulous. "You want me to introduce you to my clients? You, who are under investigation for financial fraud? Are you out of your mind?" "Just hear me out," he pleads. Westlake is doing a clinical trial for a new cancer drug. They're looking for investors. If I can get in with them, broker some deals, I can raise enough capital to fix this mess before the audit completes. No one would ever know. Except me, I say coldly. I would know that I helped you defraud more people to cover up fraud you've already committed. It's not like that, Ryan protests. This drug is legitimate. The investment is sound. I've done my research. The way you did your research on those other investments, the ones that kept tanking? I shake my head in disbelief. Even if I wanted to help you, which I absolutely do not, what you're suggesting is illegal. I struggle to find the right word. It's despicable. Ryan's face hardens, a glimpse of the cold man who had walked out on me appearing beneath the desperate exterior. You owe me, Emma. I actually laugh, the sound sharp and humorless. I owe you? I owe you what, exactly? For leaving me when I was sick and scared? For making me feel like my cancer was an inconvenience to you? Please, enlighten me about this debt I supposedly owe. I gave you the house, he says, his voice low. I gave you a generous settlement. I made sure you were taken care of. You gave me what my lawyer forced you to give me, I correct him. And you did it to assuage your guilt, not out of any genuine concern for my well-being. He doesn't deny this. Look, I know I handled things badly. Badly? I interrupt. You abandoned me during cancer treatment. You told me I was too much work. You had already moved on to Megan before my first round of chemo was complete. Badly doesn't begin to cover it. Ryan has the grace to look ashamed, but only briefly. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I'm just asking for your help. One introduction. That's all. I study him across the table. This man I once loved. This man I once believed loved me. In his features, I search for traces of the person who held my hand through food poisoning on our honeymoon, who surprised me with tickets to see my favorite band, who brought me coffee in bed every Sunday morning. That person seems entirely gone, replaced by someone desperate and selfish. No, I say finally. I won't help you defraud my clients to save yourself from consequences you've earned. That's not who I am. Emma, please, he says, reaching for my hand across the table. I pull back before he can touch me. You don't understand what I'm facing. 7 to 10 years, minimum. My career over. Everything gone. I understand perfectly, I reply. I understand what it's like to have your life pulled out from under you. To face a future very different from the one you planned. The difference is, I didn't do anything to deserve what happened to me. Ryan's expression darkens. So that's it? You're just going to let me go to prison when you could help? What happened to the woman I married? You used to have compassion. I still have compassion, I tell him, gathering my purse and standing up. Just not for men who leave their wives during cancer treatment and then come back only when they need something. Goodbye, Ryan. I walk out of the coffee shop, heart pounding, but steps steady. Behind me, I hear Ryan call my name, but I don't. Turn around. The crisp autumn air feels cleansing after the stifling atmosphere inside. I take a deep breath, filling my lungs completely. Something I couldn't do for months during treatment due to chemo-related inflammation. My phone buzzes, with a text as I reach my car. It's Sophia. How did it go? Do I need to help you hide a body? I smile despite myself. No body. Just had coffee with a ghost. Tell you later. Driving back to my office, I try to process what just happened. Ryan, the man who once seemed so solid, so certain, now revealed as a fraud in every sense of the word. Part of me, a small, vindicated part, feels a grim satisfaction at his downfall, the universe delivering a kind of karmic justice. But another part, the part shaped by the suffering of the past 16 months, feels only sadness. Sadness for the man Ryan could have been. Sadness for the marriage we might have had. Sadness even for Megan, who had discovered, as I had, that Ryan Taylor was not a man who stayed when things got difficult. Back at Phoenix Marketing's small but stylish office space, I find myself unable to focus on the presentation I need to finalize for tomorrow's client meeting. Ryan's desperate face keeps intruding on my thoughts. Not because I'm reconsidering my refusal, I'm not, but because our encounter has stirred up emotions I thought I had processed. "You look like you've seen a ghost," says Jenna, my assistant and first official employee, poking her head into my office. "Meeting not go well?" I consider deflecting, but transparency has become a cornerstone of my post-cancer life. It was my ex-husband, I admit. He wanted a favor. Jenna's eyebrows shoot up. "The ex-husband who left during your treatment? That ex-husband?" "The very same." She whistles low. "Wow, that takes some nerve." "He's in trouble," I explain. "Wanted me to introduce him to Westlake. Apparently, he's been playing fast and loose with client funds and needs a way out." "And you told him to go to hell, right?" "Jenna's loyalty is one of the reasons I hired her." In so many words, yes. She nods approvingly. "Good. Though I wouldn't blame you if you wanted to mess with him a little. You know, string him along, get his hopes up, then crush them, like a cat playing with a mouse." The suggestion makes me laugh, breaking the tension I've been carrying since leaving the coffee shop. Tempting, but no. I want nothing to do with him or his problems. "Fair enough," Jenna says. "Anyway, Dr. Rivera called. She wants to know if you can move your quarterly checkup to next Wednesday instead of Friday." "That's fine," I tell her, grateful for the return to routine matters. "Can you also pull the Westlake presentation? I want to review the competitor analysis section before tomorrow." As Jenna leaves to fetch the presentation, my phone buzzes again. Another text. From Ryan. "Please reconsider. I'm desperate. I'll do anything." I stare at the message, a complex mix of emotions swirling through me. There's something almost satisfying about seeing him beg, about being the one with the power now. But I recognize the darkness in that satisfaction and refuse to indulge it. I delete the message without responding and turn my phone face down on the desk. The rest of the day passes in a blur of client calls and presentation prep. By the time I drive home, the encounter with Ryan feels almost like a strange dream, disconnected from my actual life, my actual home. I pull into the driveway of the Craftsman house that is now truly mine, paid for in full as part of the divorce settlement. I've repainted it since Ryan left, replacing the sterile white he preferred with a warm blue-gray, planted hydrangeas and lavender in the front beds, bought the reading chair I'd always wanted for the bay window in the living room. Small changes that have transformed this space from our house to my home. Inside, I kick off my shoes and head straight for the kitchen to pour a glass of wine, another post-treatment luxury I've reclaimed. The doctor gave me the all-clear for moderate alcohol consumption 6 months ago, and I still savor the simple pleasure of a good Pinot Noir after a long day. I'm just settling into my reading chair with my wine and the novel I've been trying to finish for weeks when the doorbell rings. For a moment, I consider ignoring it. It's past 8, and I'm not expecting anyone. But curiosity gets the better of me, and I peer through the peephole. Ryan. My heart sinks. Of course he would show up here. Of course he wouldn't respect my clearly stated boundary. Of course, I consider pretending I'm not home, but the lights are on, my car is in the driveway, and I can see from his expression that he knows I'm inside. Reluctantly, I open the door but stand firmly in the threshold, blocking his entry. "You shouldn't be here," I say by way of greeting. "I know," he admits. "But I didn't know where else to go. Can I come in? Please? Just for a few minutes." I hesitate, torn between my desire to maintain boundaries and a nagging sense that something is really wrong. Ryan looks worse than he did this afternoon. Pale, sweaty, his eyes darting nervously. 5 minutes, I say finally, stepping aside to let him pass. In the living room, not upstairs. He nods gratefully and follows me into the living room, where he stands awkwardly, not sitting down until I gesture to the sofa across from my chair. Even then, he perches on the edge, clearly uncomfortable. "You've changed the place," he says, glancing around. "It looks good." "Ryan," I say firmly, "why are you here?" He runs a hand through his hair, a gesture so familiar it creates an unwelcome pang of nostalgia. "I didn't tell you everything this afternoon. The situation. It's worse than I let on." "Worse how?" "Some of the clients whose funds He trails off, searching for a euphemism. "Some of them aren't just regular investors. They're connected, dangerous people." I feel a chill despite the warmth of the room. "Are you saying you stole from criminals?" "Not stole," he corrects automatically. "Borrowed without proper documentation. But yes, some of the clients have ties to organizations you wouldn't want to cross. And they know." He nods miserably. "Got a visit yesterday. Very polite. Very clear about what would happen if their money wasn't returned by the end of the month." I take a long sip of wine, processing this new information. So this isn't just about avoiding prison, it's about avoiding something worse. Yes. "What about Marcus? It's his problem too, right?" Ryan's expression darkens. "Marcus is gone, emptied his accounts, took his wife and kids, disappeared, left me holding the bag." "Of course he did," I mutter. "Because that's what people do in Ryan's world. When things get tough, they leave." "So you thought." "Who do I know who doesn't abandon people when they need help? I know, my ex-wife, the one I abandoned when she had cancer." He winces at my harsh tone, but doesn't deny the accuracy of my assessment. I know how it sounds. "I know I have no right to ask you for anything, but Emma, these people will hurt me. Maybe worse." "That sounds like a problem for the police," I suggest. Ryan laughs bitterly. "Right. Hello, officer. I committed securities fraud and now the mob wants to break my legs. Can you help?" That would go over well. He has a point, though I'm loath to admit it. "So, what exactly do you want from me? The same thing as before? An introduction to Westlake?" "Yes," he says, leaning forward. "But I've thought more about how to approach it. You wouldn't have to do anything illegal. Just get me in the room. I can handle the rest." The rest being what? Convincing them to invest with a financial advisor who's under SEC investigation? How exactly do you see that? "Working out?" He shifts uncomfortably. "I have a plan. I just need the introduction." I study him for a long moment, trying to see past the desperation to his actual intentions. What I see doesn't reassure me. "You're lying again," I say finally. "There's something you're not telling me." Ryan's gaze slides away from mine, confirming my suspicion. "I'm telling you everything you need to know." "That's not how this works," I reply, setting down my wine glass with deliberate care. "If you want my help, which I haven't agreed to give, you need to tell me the whole truth. All of it." He stands abruptly, pacing across the room to the window and back. "Fine. The whole truth. I don't just need an introduction to Westlake. I need access to their research data on the new drug. The real data, not the sanitized version they're showing potential investors." "Why?" I ask, though I'm already dreading the answer. "Because I need to know if the drug actually works," he says, as if this should be obvious. "If it does, I can leverage that information with certain investors before the clinical trial results are public." I stare at him in disbelief. "You're talking about insider trading, on top of the fraud you've already committed." "It's a gray area," he argues weakly. It's really not. I stand up, putting physical distance between us. Let me get this straight. You want me to help you commit a federal crime using confidential information from my client? A client whose trust I've worked incredibly hard to earn? A client who took a chance on my new business when others wouldn't? Ryan has the decency to look ashamed. When you put it that way. There's no other way to put it, I snap. You're asking me to be your accomplice in securities fraud, to risk my business, my reputation, my future, to save you from consequences of your own making. Not just consequences, he reminds me, voice tight with fear. These people will hurt me. Emma, maybe kill me. Then go to the police, I repeat. Go to the FBI, tell them everything and get protection. There are options here that don't involve dragging me into your mess. Ryan shakes his head vehemently. I can't do that. If I go to the authorities, I'm definitely going to prison. For years. This way, there's at least a chance I can fix things without anyone knowing. Anyone except me, I point out. And Westlake. And whoever else gets caught in the crossfire of your scheme. He steps toward me, something desperate and dangerous in his eyes. You don't understand what these people are capable of. What they might do. I understand perfectly, I reply, standing my ground. What I don't understand is why you think your problems should become my problems, why your poor choices should compromise my integrity. Because we were married, he says, as if this explains everything. Because once upon a time, you loved me. And you loved me, I counter. Until I got sick. Until I became inconvenient. Until I was too much work. His face contorts with something like genuine regret. I know I hurt you. I know what I did. Was unforgivable. But Emma, I'm begging you, help me this one time and you'll never have to see me again. The promise, you'll never have to see me again, is tempting. But not tempting enough to outweigh the moral and legal implications of what he's asking. The answer is no, Ryan. I won't help you commit fraud or insider trading. I won't betray my client's trust. I won't risk everything I've built to save you from your own poor decisions. So that's it? His voice rises slightly. You're just going to let me die? You're not going to die, I say, though I can't be certain of this. You're going to face consequences. There's a difference. Ryan steps closer, invading my personal space. After everything I did for you. Everything you did for me? I interrupt, incredulous. Like what exactly? Walking out when I needed you most? Making me feel like my illness was a burden? Moving on to Megan before my hair had even fallen out from chemo? He flinches at the reminder but doesn't back down. I made sure you had financial security. I could have fought the settlement, dragged things out. I didn't. How generous of you, I say, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Should I have sent a thank you note? Dear Ryan, thanks for not being even more of a monster during the worst period of my life. Best wishes, Emma. His face darkens with anger. You always twist things. Make me the villain. You made yourself the villain, I reply evenly. The moment you decided that your wedding vows had an asterisk next to in sickness and in health. We stand there in tense silence, the air between us charged with a complex mixture of old hurt and new conflict. This man, who once knew every inch of my body, who once held my hair back when I had the flu, who once promised to love me forever, now feels like a dangerous stranger in my living room. You need to leave, I say finally, moving toward the front door to make my point clear. I can't help you, and I don't want to. Ryan doesn't move. I'm not leaving until you agree to help me. A chill runs down my spine at his tone. For the first time, I feel genuinely afraid of what he might do. Ryan, I say carefully, if you don't leave now, I'm calling the police. He scoffs. And tell them what? That your ex-husband is asking for a business introduction? That an unwanted visitor refuses to leave my home? I correct him, pulling my phone from my pocket. I'm sure they'd be very interested to meet you. We stare at each other for a long, tense moment, a silent battle of wills. Finally, Ryan's shoulders slump in defeat. Fine, he says. I'll go. But this isn't over, Emma. I need your help, and I'm going to get it one way or another. The implied threat sends another wave of fear through me, but I keep my expression neutral as I open the front door. Goodbye, Ryan. He walks past me without another word, his cologne, still the same brand after all this time, momentarily, overwhelming my senses with unwelcome memories. I watch from the doorway as he gets into his car, slams the door, and drives away, tires squealing slightly on the pavement. Only when his taillights disappear around the corner do I close and lock the door, engaging the deadbolt and security chain for good measure. My hands are trembling, I realize, as I lean back against the solid wood. Whether from anger or fear or some combination of both, I'm not sure. I return to the living room and pick up my phone, hesitating only briefly before dialing. Emma? Sophia answers on the second ring. Everything okay? Not really, I admit. Ryan showed up at my house. It was unsettling. I'm coming over, she says immediately, and I can hear her already moving, keys jingling in the background. You don't have to. Already on my way, she interrupts. Open a bottle of wine. The good stuff, not that cheap Merlot you save for cooking. I smile despite myself. Okay. 20 minutes later, Sophia is sitting across from me in my living room, glass of Cabernet in hand, listening intently as I recount both encounters with Ryan. Her expression grows increasingly alarmed as I explain the full extent of his request. He wanted you to help him commit securities fraud? She asks incredulously. After everything he put you through? And insider trading, I add. Don't forget that part. Sophia shakes her head in disbelief. The audacity of mediocre white. Men never ceases to amaze me. She takes a thoughtful sip of wine. You think he's telling the truth? About the dangerous investors? I consider this. Maybe. Probably. He seemed genuinely scared. Scared enough to drag you into his mess, she points out. Scared enough to threaten you when you refused. He didn't exactly threaten me, I hedge. Sophia gives me a look. This isn't over. I'm going to get your help one way or another. Emma, that's a threat. She's right, of course. I just don't want to confront the implications. What am I supposed to do? Call the police and say my ex-husband made a vague, ominous statement? They'd laugh me out of the station. Maybe, Sophia concedes, but you should document everything. Times, dates, what was said, just in case. In case what? She meets my gaze steadily. In case he escalates. In case he decides that asking nicely isn't getting him what he wants. A knot forms in my stomach at the thought. You really think he would? What? Force me to help him somehow? I don't know, Sophia admits. The Ryan you married? Probably not. But this Ryan? Desperate? Being hunted by criminals? Facing prison time? I wouldn't put anything past him. I sink deeper into my chair, suddenly exhausted. This isn't fair. I've spent the last 16 months rebuilding my life, my health, my career. I finally feel like myself again. Better than myself, even. And now Ryan shows up, trying to drag me back into chaos. Sophia reaches across the space between us to squeeze my hand. Then don't let him. You've worked too hard to get where you are, to become who you are. I'm not planning to help him, I assure her, but I'm worried about what he might do next. Then we'll be prepared, Sophia says firmly, starting with practical security measures. When was the last time you changed your locks? I blink, considering. Never? Ryan gave me his keys during the divorce, but he could have made copies, Sophia finishes. First thing tomorrow, we're calling a locksmith. And I think you should stay at my place tonight, just to be safe. Part of me wants to protest that she's overreacting, that Ryan wouldn't actually hurt me. But another part, the part that saw something unfamiliar and dangerous in his eyes tonight, agrees with her assessment. Okay, I say finally. Let me pack a bag. As I move through the house, gathering what I'll need for an overnight stay, I find myself hyper-aware of how vulnerable I suddenly feel in this space that has been my sanctuary. Every creak of the old house makes me jump. Every shadow seems potentially threatening. This, too, is something Ryan has taken from me, I realize. The sense of safety in my own home. Upstairs in my bedroom, I pull a small duffel bag from the closet and begin filling it with essentials. Pajamas, a change of clothes for tomorrow, toiletries. As I zip the bag closed, my gaze falls on the small wooden box Dr. Rivera gave me, still sitting on my nightstand. On impulse, I pick it up and tuck it into the bag as well. Tonight feels like a night when I might need the reassurance of those notes, those breadcrumbs leading toward a future beyond current troubles. When I return downstairs, Sophia is on the phone, speaking in hushed tones. She ends the call when she sees me. That was David, she explains, referring to her husband. He's setting up the guest room for you. And he's going to stay home tomorrow. Work remotely. That's not necessary, I protest. I don't want to disrupt your lives. It's not a disruption, she insists. It's what friends do. Besides, David has been looking for an excuse to work from home and play with the new espresso machine. I smile gratefully, once again struck by how fortunate I am in my chosen family. Thank you, I say simply. Sophia waves away my thanks. Don't mention it. Now, let's go before it gets any later. I'm exhausted, and you look like you're about to fall over. As we head to her car, I glance back at my house, windows glowing warmly in the darkness, hydrangeas silvered by moonlight. Just this morning, it represented everything I had accomplished, everything I had reclaimed. Now it feels compromised, tainted by Ryan's unwelcome presence. It's going to be okay, Sophia says, following my gaze. Whatever he's planning, whatever he does next, we'll handle it. Together. I nod, wanting to believe her. But as we drive away, I can't shake the feeling that the past I thought I had escaped has returned with a vengeance, threatening everything I've worked so hard to build. Later, lying awake in Sophia's guest room despite my exhaustion, I replay the day's events in my mind, the shock of seeing Ryan again after so many months, the audacity of his request, the subtle shift from desperate plea to implied threat. What will he do next? The question circles endlessly, preventing sleep. Will he come to my office? Try to contact my clients directly? Find some other leverage to force my cooperation? Or will he realize the futility of his efforts and seek help elsewhere? From the police, perhaps? Or from whatever friends he hasn't yet alienated with his actions? I don't know. And the not knowing is almost worse than any specific threat. I reach for the wooden box I brought with me, opening it in the dim light filtering through the guest room curtains. I select a note at random and unfold it carefully. The most valuable lesson cancer taught me, it reads in neat, precise handwriting, is that I am stronger than any crisis. Remember, you've already survived the unsurvivable. Whatever comes next is just another Tuesday. I trace the words with my fingertip, drawing strength from this stranger who has walked a path similar to mine. They're right, I realize. I have already endured what should have broken me. I have already rebuilt from ashes. Whatever Ryan brings, whatever chaos he tries to create, it cannot compare to what I've already overcome. With this thought, I finally drift into an uneasy sleep, the note still clutched in my hand, like a talisman against the darkness. Morning sunlight filters through unfamiliar, curtains as I slowly awaken in Sophia's guest room. For a moment, I'm disoriented, unsure why I'm not in my own bed. Then the memories of yesterday crash back. Ryan's desperate pleas, his implied threats, my hasty retreat to the safety of my friend's home. I reach for my phone, half expecting to find a barrage of messages from Ryan. Instead, there's just one. Sent at 3:17 a.m. I'm sorry about last night. I was desperate, still am. But I shouldn't have pushed you. Please call me when you're ready to talk. The apology feels calculated, designed to lure me back into conversation. I delete the message without responding and drag myself out of bed. In Sophia's kitchen, I find David already up, true to his word about working from home today. He's dressed in sweatpants and a faded Portland Trail Blazers t-shirt, his laptop open on the kitchen island beside a steaming mug of coffee. "Morning," he says cheerfully. "Coffee's fresh, and there's that fancy granola you like in the pantry." David has always been like this, thoughtful in quiet ways, noticing preferences and remembering them. He's the perfect complement to Sophia's more outspoken nature, and I've often envied their partnership. Not with jealousy, but with a wistful recognition of what a healthy relationship looks like. "Thanks," I say, helping myself to coffee. "Where's Sophia?" "Early meeting. Couldn't reschedule. She said to tell you she called a locksmith who can come to your place at 11, and she's arranged for a security company to do an assessment this afternoon." I sigh, torn between gratitude for her efficiency and embarrassment at the fuss. She doesn't need to do all that. David gives me a level look over the rim of his coffee mug. "She told me what happened, Emma. Ryan's behavior isn't normal or safe." "I know," I admit. "It's just, I've spent so much time and energy reclaiming my life. I hate that he can still disrupt it like this." "That's exactly why you need to take precautions," David points out. "To protect what you've built." He's right, of course. I nod, sipping my coffee and trying to formulate a plan for the day. I have client meetings I can't reschedule, emails that need responses, a business to run. I can't put my life on hold, because my ex-husband has resurfaced with problems of his own making. "What time is your first meeting?" David asks, seeming to read my thoughts. 10:30 at the office, then another at 1. He nods. "I'll drive you there and pick you up after. Then we can meet the locksmith and security consultant at your house." I start to protest that he doesn't need to chauffeur me around, but the truth is, I'm grateful for the support. For not having to face the day alone. "Thank you," I say instead. "No problem. What are friends for if not to protect each other from desperate ex-husbands involved with the mob?" His tone is light, but his eyes are serious. I manage a small smile. "When you put it that way." By the time I've showered, dressed in the clothes I packed last night, and finished my coffee, I feel more centered. More myself. Ryan's reappearance in my life is a complication, not a catastrophe. I've handled worse. Much worse. The workday passes in a blur of meetings and calls, the familiar rhythm of business both comforting and distracting. I don't mention Ryan to my colleagues or clients, compartmentalizing his existence into a separate box from my professional life. It's a skill I perfected during cancer treatment, this ability to section off difficulties, to prevent them from bleeding into every aspect of my being. David, true to his word, picks me up after my final meeting. As we drive to my house to meet the locksmith, I notice him checking the rearview mirror more often than usual. "Are you looking for something?" I ask. He hesitates before answering, making sure we're not being followed. A chill runs through me. "You think Ryan would follow me?" "I think a man who's in trouble with criminals and desperate enough to ask his ex-wife for help might do a lot of things," David says carefully. "Better safe than sorry." When we arrive at my house, I'm relieved to see no sign of Ryan's car nearby. The locksmith is already waiting, a middle-aged woman with practical clothes and a no-nonsense demeanor. She changes all the exterior locks, efficiently, explaining the features of the new, more secure deadbolts as she works. Much harder to pick, she says, demonstrating the new front door lock. And these come with keys that can't be duplicated at your local hardware store. You need the security card I'm giving you to make copies. An hour later, the security consultant arrives, a former police officer named Mike who now runs a private security business. He walks through the house methodically, making notes on a tablet, pointing out vulnerabilities I never noticed. Ground floor windows should all have security locks, he says, and you should consider a monitored alarm system. At minimum, I'd recommend security cameras for the front and back entrances. It feels surreal, transforming my cozy home into a fortress. But as Mike explains the various options, I find myself nodding, imagining Ryan's face contorted with that unfamiliar desperation I saw last night. How soon can you install everything? I ask. I can have a team here tomorrow, Mike says. We can do the whole job in a day. Do it, I tell him, signing the estimate he presents on his tablet. After Mike leaves, David helps me check all the windows and doors, making sure everything is secure for the night. You want to come back to our place? He offers. Just until the security system is installed. I'm tempted, but shake my head. I need to sleep in my own bed, reclaim my space. I gesture at the new locks. Besides, I'm safer now than I was yesterday. David doesn't look entirely convinced but respects my decision. Call us if anything at all seems off, no matter what time. I will, I promise. After he leaves, I move through the house turning on lights, trying to dispel the lingering unease that Ryan's visit left behind. In the kitchen, I pour a glass of wine and lean against the counter, scrolling through emails on my phone. One from Dr. Rivera catches my eye, a reminder about my appointment next week, along with a link to a new support group specifically for cancer survivors facing relationship challenges. I click the link, scanning the group description. It meets, Thursdays at 7 in the community room at Pacific Northwest Medical Center. Tomorrow, in fact. I make a mental note to attend, craving the understanding that only others who have walked a similar path can provide. The rest of the evening passes quietly. I heat up leftover pasta for dinner, catch up on work emails, call Sophia to thank her for arranging the locksmith and security consultation. There's no further word from Ryan, which should be reassuring but somehow makes me more uneasy. What is he planning? Has he found another way to solve his problems? Or is he simply regrouping? Before making another attempt to enlist my help? I go to bed early, exhausted by the emotional toll of the past 2 days. Sleep comes surprisingly easily, my body apparently more tired than my racing mind. I awaken to the sound of my phone ringing. Not a text alert, but an actual call. The clock on my nightstand reads 2:34 a.m. My heart races as I fumble for the phone, expecting to see Ryan's name on the screen. Instead, it's a number I don't recognize. Hello, I answer cautiously. Is this Emma Taylor? A woman's voice, unfamiliar. Yes, who is this? My name is Julie Reynolds. I'm a nurse at Portland Memorial Hospital. I'm calling about Ryan Taylor. You're listed as his emergency contact. My blood runs cold. What happened? Mr. Taylor was brought in about an hour ago. He's been injured. Quite seriously. Injured how? I ask, already getting out of bed, reaching for clothes. The nurse hesitates. It appears to be an assault, multiple injuries. He's asking for you. Of course he is. Even now, even after everything, I'm still the person he reaches for in crisis. I close my eyes briefly, weighing my options. I could refuse. I could hang up and go back to sleep. I owe Ryan nothing, less than nothing. But I'm not Ryan. I don't abandon people in their hour of need, even people who have hurt me. I'll be there in 20 minutes, I tell the nurse. Portland Memorial is eerily quiet at this hour, the emergency department staffed by a skeleton, crew of night shift workers. At the reception desk, I give Ryan's name and am directed to a curtained bay in the treatment area. I steel myself before pulling back the curtain, unsure what I'll find. The reality is worse than I imagined. Ryan lies on the gurney, his face almost unrecognizable beneath bruising and swelling. One eye is completely shut, the other mere slits between puffy flesh. His right arm is in a temporary splint, and there's a brace around his neck. Various machines monitor his vital signs, their steady beeping the only sound in the small space. "Ryan?" I say softly. His one partially open eye finds me, and relief floods his battered features. "Emma," he croaks. "You came." "Of course. I came." I move closer, careful not to touch any of the medical equipment. "What happened?" "What do you think happened?" His voice is raspy, barely audible. "I told you these people were dangerous." A sick feeling settles in my stomach. "The investors? They did this to you?" He attempts to nod, but winces with the movement. "Warning shot. Said next time they'll kill me." A doctor enters then, clipboard in hand, expression grave. He introduces himself as Dr. Patel and explains Ryan's injuries with clinical detachment. 3 broken ribs, a fractured radius, severe bruising, possible concussion, numerous lacerations. "He's lucky," Dr. Patel concludes. "A few more blows to the head might have caused permanent damage." Lucky is not the word I would use to describe the man before me, but I nod my understanding. "When can he be discharged?" "We'd like to keep him for observation today, but assuming no complications, probably this evening." After the doctor leaves, an uncomfortable silence fills the small space. Ryan watches me with his one partially functional eye, seemingly waiting for me to speak. "Where will you go when they discharge you?" I ask finally. "Your apartment?" "Not safe," he whispers. "They know where I live." The implication hangs in the air between us. He wants to come home with me. To my home. The home that was once ours. The home I have reclaimed and made my own. "Ryan," I begin, but he interrupts. "Just for a few days," he pleads. "Until I figure something out. Until the swelling goes down. Enough that I can think straight. Please, Emma." I look at him, really look at him. Beyond the physical injuries, I see terror in his eyes. Real, visceral terror. Whatever game he was playing yesterday, showing up at my door with veiled threats. This is different. This is survival. 2 days, I say finally. "You can stay for 2 days. Then we figure out a more permanent solution." Relief washes over his damaged face. "Thank you," he whispers. I don't tell him about the new locks, the security assessment, my suspicions about his intentions. That can wait. Right now, he's a human being in pain, afraid for his life. And whatever else Ryan has done, whatever else he is, I can't turn my back on that. I stay until dawn, dozing uncomfortably in the chair beside his bed. When visiting, hours officially begin at 8. A nurse suggests I go home, get some proper rest, and return later. I take her advice gratefully, stopping at a drive-thru for coffee on my way home. The security installation team is scheduled to arrive at 10. I have just enough time to shower, change clothes, and make some calls rearranging my day to accommodate Ryan's discharge. Jenna is understanding when I explain I need to work remotely, though I give her a sanitized version of events, an injured ex-husband with nowhere else to go. She offers to bring any necessary documents to my house, an offer I gratefully accept. Mike and his team arrive precisely at 10, and I give them free rein of the house while I set up my laptop at the kitchen table. Between email responses and client calls, I watch as they install window sensors, door alarms, and discrete cameras at each entrance. By mid-afternoon, my home has been transformed into what Mike calls a basic but effective security envelope. "The system connects to your phone," he explains, walking me through the app that now displays live feeds from the cameras. You'll get alerts for any unauthorized entry, and this panic button. He hands me a small device that resembles a car. Key fob connects directly to our monitoring center. Press it if you feel threatened, and we dispatch security immediately. If necessary, they'll call police as well. I thank him, tucking the panic button into my pocket and wondering if I'll need it sooner than expected, given Ryan's imminent arrival. I pick Ryan up from the hospital at 6, helping him to my car with the assistance of a wheelchair and a nurse. He's been given pain medication, rendering him groggy and compliant. The drive home is silent, Ryan drifting in and out of consciousness in the passenger seat. Getting him into the house is a challenge. He's unsteady on his feet, leaning heavily on me as we navigate the front steps. I guide him to the guest room, the room that was once his home office, now repurposed with a daybed and my yoga equipment. Bathroom, he mumbles as I help him sit on the bed. I lead him down the hall to the guest bathroom, wait outside the door until he emerges, then guide him back to bed. He's asleep almost before his head hits the pillow, the pain medication pulling him under. I stand in the doorway, watching him for a moment, trying to reconcile this broken man with the husband who abandoned me, with the desperate ex who showed up at my door making demands. In sleep, his battered face relaxed. He looks vulnerable. Human. I close the door softly and return to the kitchen, where I pour a glass of wine and call Sophia. He's here, I tell her when she answers, sleeping in the guest room. I still think this is a bad idea, she says, not bothering to hide her concern. He could be manipulating you, Emma. People like Ryan, they know how to play on your empathy. You didn't see him, I say quietly. He's genuinely hurt, genuinely scared. Whatever game he was playing yesterday, this is different. Maybe, Sophia concedes, but be careful. Don't let your guard down just because he's injured. I won't, I promise. The security system is installed. I've got the panic button, and it's just for 2 days until he's well enough to make other arrangements. We talk a bit longer, Sophia extracting a promise that I'll call or text her regularly with updates. After we hang up, I check on Ryan once more. He's still deeply asleep, his breathing shallow, but regular. I leave a glass of water and his pain medication on the nightstand, then retreat to my own bedroom, locking the door behind me. Despite my exhaustion, sleep proves elusive. Every creak of the old house has me sitting up, listening intently. Is it Ryan moving around? Someone trying to break in? Just the normal settling sounds of a home at night? When I finally do drift off, my dreams are troubled, fragmented scenes of Ryan's battered face blending with memories of my own illness, of lying in hospital beds while machines monitored my vital signs. I awaken to the smell of coffee brewing, momentarily confused before remembering that I'm not alone in the house. Pulling on a robe, I venture downstairs to find Ryan in the kitchen, moving gingerly but managing to navigate the coffee maker despite his injuries. "You're up," I observe, keeping my distance. He turns carefully, wincing with the movement. "Couldn't sleep anymore. Pain meds wore off." His voice is still raspy, his face somehow more horrifying in daylight, the bruises having deepened to shades of purple and black, his swollen features distorted almost beyond recognition. "There's more in your room," I remind him, on the nightstand. "I know. Wanted coffee first." He gestures to the pot. "Made enough for both of us." This small consideration, remembering that I'm a coffee drinker, making enough for two, triggers an unwelcome wave of nostalgia. How many mornings had we shared like this, in this very kitchen, before cancer changed everything, before he revealed himself to be someone who couldn't be counted on when it mattered most? I push the memories aside and pour myself a cup, maintaining physical distance from Ryan as I do. "How are you feeling?" "Like I got run over by a truck," he admits, gingerly touching his face. "But I'll live, thanks to you." "I just picked you up from the hospital," I say, dismissing his gratitude. The doctors are the ones who patched you up. You know what I mean, he insists. You didn't have to let me stay here. After how I acted the other night. After everything. I meet his gaze, or try to, given that one eye is still completely swollen shut. 2 days, Ryan. That's what I agreed to. Then you need to find another solution. He nods carefully. I understand. I'm grateful for even that much. We drink our coffee in awkward silence, the weight of our shared history hanging between us like an invisible barrier. I have questions, many of them, but I'm not sure I want the answers. Not sure I want to be further entangled in Ryan's problems. But as the silence stretches, my curiosity gets the better of me. Are you going to tell me exactly what happened? Who these people are who did this to you? Ryan sighs, setting down his coffee mug with a slightly trembling hand. It's complicated. I've got time, I tell him, crossing my arms. He looks at me for a long moment, seemingly weighing how much to reveal. There's a client, he begins finally. Alexander Volkov, Russian expat with family connections back. Home. Very wealthy, very private about where that wealth comes from. And you lost his money, I guess. Ryan winces. Not lost, exactly. Used it to cover other investments that weren't performing as expected. It was supposed to be temporary. A short-term solution until the market improved. But the market didn't improve. No, he admits. And when Volkov wanted to make a significant withdrawal to purchase a property in Aspen, the funds weren't immediately available. So you stalled, I surmise. For a while. But eventually, he sent people to get answers. That's when things got intense. The euphemism almost makes me laugh. Intense. As if what happened to Ryan was a particularly challenging workout, not a brutal beating that left him hospitalized. Who were they? The men who hurt you? I don't know their names, Ryan says, shaking his head slightly. 2 guys, built like linebackers. Eastern European accents. They showed up at my apartment yesterday evening. Said Mr. Volkov was disappointed in me. Said I had one more chance to return his money, or next time they wouldn't stop. I absorbed this information, feeling a chill despite the warm coffee in my hands. And do you have his money? Or any way to get it? Ryan's expression answers before his words do. Not all of it. Some. Maybe 30%. What about the SEC investigation? Couldn't you explain the situation to them? Get protection? He laughs bitterly, then grimaces as the movement causes pain. Sure, I could confess to securities fraud and hope they're feeling generous enough to put me in witness protection instead of federal prison. Great plan. Better than being killed by the Russian mob, I point out. Maybe? He concedes. But there's another option. The one I told you about. Of course. We're back to his request for an introduction to Westlake Pharmaceuticals. Back to his scheme to commit more fraud to cover up existing fraud. That's not an option, Ryan, I say firmly. I'm not helping you defraud my clients or commit insider trading. Then help me another way, he suggests, leaning forward despite the obvious pain it causes him. Lend me the money, just enough to pay back. Volkov. I'll figure out the SEC situation somehow. I stare at him, incredulous. You want me to lend you money? After everything? Not a gift, he clarifies quickly. A loan. I'll pay you back, with interest. With what? I challenge. Your assets are probably frozen because of the investigation. Your business partner has disappeared. Your girlfriend left. What exactly would you use to pay me back? He has no answer for this, his gaze dropping to the counter. Besides, I continue, how much are we talking about? How much do you need to pay off Volkov? Ryan hesitates before answering. 1.2 million. The figure hangs in the air between us, its enormity almost laughable. I don't have that kind of money, Ryan, not even close. But your business is doing well, he argues. You must have access to capital, lines of credit. Stop, I interrupt, holding up a hand. Just stop. I'm not bankrupting myself or leveraging my business to solve problems you created. That's not happening. He looks as if he wants to argue further but thinks better of it, nodding resignedly. You're right. I shouldn't have asked. It's not your problem. No, I agree. It's not. We lapse back into silence, the tension in the room palpable. Ryan sips his coffee, wincing occasionally when the mug touches his split lip. I watch him covertly, wondering what he's really thinking, what he's planning. Because Ryan always has a plan, always has an angle. It's what made him a successful financial advisor. It's also what has landed him in this current mess. I have meetings this afternoon, I tell him, breaking the silence. I'll be working from home, but I'll need privacy. The guest room has a desk you can use if you need to make calls or use a computer. Thanks, he says, but I think I'll just rest. The pain meds make it hard to focus anyway. I nod, relieved that I won't have to worry about him overhearing sensitive client conversations. There's food in the fridge. Help yourself. Just stay out of my home office while I'm working. Of course, he agrees readily. Too readily? I push. The paranoia aside. Ryan may be desperate, may be grasping at straws, but surely he wouldn't attempt to access my client files without permission. That would cross a line even he would recognize. Wouldn't it? The day passes in an uneasy rhythm. I work from my home office, door firmly closed, while Ryan presumably rests in the guest room. I emerge only briefly to make lunch, a sandwich that I eat at my desk, and to check that Ryan has taken his pain medication as scheduled. By late afternoon, I'm finding it increasingly difficult to focus on work, hyper-aware of Ryan's presence, in the house of the potential threat he represents not just to my safety, but to my professional integrity. What if he's not resting at all? What if he's searching the house for information he could use? What if he's planning to access my computer when I'm not looking? These thoughts spiral until I finally give up on productivity, shutting down my laptop and tidying my desk. It's nearly 5 anyway, a reasonable time to end the workday. When I emerge from my office, I find Ryan in the living room, stretched out on the sofa, watching the news on mute. He looks up when I enter, attempting a smile that comes out as more of a grimace given his injured face. Feeling any better? I ask, perching on the armchair across from him. A little, he says. The swelling in my eye has gone down some. I can almost see out of it now. I nod, noticing that indeed, his right eye is now partially open, a sliver of blue visible beneath the puffy lid. Good, that's progress. An awkward silence falls between us. There was a time when we could spend hours together comfortably, when conversation flowed easily, or silence felt natural, not loaded with tension and unspoken grievances. I've been thinking, Ryan says finally, about what you said this morning. What part specifically? About me creating my own problems. About how it's not fair to ask you to solve them. He shifts on the sofa, wincing slightly. You're right, it's not fair, and I'm sorry for putting you in this position. The apology sounds genuine, but with Ryan, it's hard to tell. He's always been persuasive. It's what made him successful in his career, this ability to make people believe in him, trust him. Thank you for acknowledging that, I say cautiously. I've made a decision, he continues. Tomorrow, when the 48 hours you've given me are up, I'm going to turn myself in, to the FBI, not the local police. Tell them everything about Volkov, about the fraud, all of it. I study his face, looking for signs of deception. You're serious? Yes, he says firmly. It's the only way out. You were right about that too. Relief washes over me, not just because this means Ryan will leave my house as agreed, but because it seems like the safest solution for everyone involved. For Ryan himself, despite the legal consequences he'll face. I think that's the right decision, I tell him. He nods, his expression somber. It won't be easy. I'll probably go to prison, but it's better than looking over my shoulder for the rest of my life. Better than involving you in any more of my mess. The self-awareness is surprising coming from Ryan, who has always been skilled at justifying his actions, at shifting blame when things go wrong. Maybe the beating was a wake-up call. Maybe facing his own mortality has given him perspective. Or maybe this is just another act, another attempt to manipulate. With Ryan, it's hard to know for sure. I'm going to make dinner, I announce, standing up. Pasta okay? Whatever you're making is fine, he says. Can I help? No need. Rest. I'll call you when it's ready. In the kitchen, I move through the familiar motions of boiling water, chopping vegetables, sautéing garlic. The routine is calming, giving my hands something to do while my mind processes this latest development. If Ryan is sincere about turning himself in tomorrow, then I've made it through this crisis relatively unscathed. 2 uncomfortable days of housing my ex-husband, but no lasting consequences. No compromise of my professional ethics, no financial entanglement with his problems. But as I stir the sauce, a nagging doubt persists. Ryan's change of heart seems too convenient, too sudden. What if it's a ploy to lower my guard? What if he's planning something else entirely? I glance toward the living room, where I can see the back of Ryan's head as he continues watching television. He seems peaceful enough, not like someone plotting a desperate last move. Still, I resolve to remain vigilant, to keep my bedroom door locked tonight, to make sure my laptop and client files are secure, to keep the panic button within reach at all times. Because with Ryan, I've learned the hard way. Things are rarely as simple as they seem. The following morning, I awaken to the sound of my phone's alarm, momentarily forgetting that Ryan is in my guest room. Reality crashes back as I swing my legs over the side of the bed. Today is the day he's supposed to leave. The day he supposedly plans to turn himself in to the FBI. I go through my morning routine quickly, listening for sounds of movement in the rest of the house. The silence is unnerving. Is Ryan still asleep? Has he already left? Or is he moving? Quietly, doing something I should be concerned about? When I finally emerge from my bedroom, the hallway is empty. The guest room door stands ajar, and a quick glance inside reveals rumpled sheets but no Ryan. My pulse quickens as I move downstairs, scanning each room I pass. I find him in the kitchen, fully dressed in yesterday's clothes, his duffel bag, packed and sitting by the door. He's made coffee again, 2 mugs steaming on the counter. His face looks marginally better than yesterday, though still a horrific tapestry of bruises in varying shades of purple, blue, and yellow. Morning, he says, pushing a mug toward me. I wasn't sure what time you'd be up. I accept the coffee, cautiously. You're ready early. He nods, wincing slightly at the movement. Figured I'd get out of your hair as soon as possible. You've done more than enough already. Something about his demeanor strikes me as odd. The desperate man who showed up at my door 2 days ago, who pleaded from a hospital bed, seems replaced by someone calmer, more collected. Despite his battered appearance, he carries himself with a strange confidence. So, you're still planning to go to the FBI today? I ask directly. That's the plan, he confirms, though something flickers in his one good eye that makes me doubt his sincerity. Ryan, I say carefully, if you're not really going to turn yourself in, tell me now. Don't lie to me again. He holds my gaze for a long moment before his shoulders slump slightly. I don't know, he admits. I want to do the right thing, I do, but the thought of prison. He trails off, shaking his head. I'm not sure I have the courage. At least he's being honest now. What's your alternative? Keep running from Volkov's men? That didn't work out so well for you. I know. He sighs, leaning against the counter. I've been thinking about Mexico. Or maybe Costa Rica. Somewhere with no extradition, where I could start over. With what money? I challenge. You said yourself that most of your assets are tied up or frozen. Ryan's gaze slides away from mine. I have some resources set aside. Emergency funds. Of course you do, I mutter, unsurprised that he had contingency plans even while claiming complete desperation. It's classic Ryan. Always an angle. Always a hidden reserve. It's not much, he clarifies quickly. Enough to get established. Somewhere new. Maybe start a small business. Nothing fancy. I take a sip of my coffee, using the moment to collect my thoughts. So, what's stopping you? Why are you still here if you've got an escape route planned? He hesitates, seemingly weighing his words. 2 things. First, practical logistics. I need a few days for the swelling in my face to go down. Can't exactly fly under the radar looking like this. He gestures to his battered features. And second. He pauses, something vulnerable passing across his face. I wanted to see you again, to explain, to apologize properly for what I did. Which part? I ask, my voice cooler than I intended. Abandoning me during cancer treatment, or showing up 16 months later asking me to commit securities fraud? Ryan actually flinches at my directness. Both. All of it. He sets down his coffee mug and looks at me with unexpected intensity. I know you have no reason to believe anything I say. I know I've been selfish and cowardly. But for what it's worth, I am sorry, Emma. More sorry than I can express. I study him, searching for signs of manipulation, of the calculated charm. He's always been able to deploy when needed, but all I see is exhaustion, pain, and what appears to be genuine regret. Why now? I ask. Why the sudden need to apologize after all this time? Nearly dying tends to clarify one's thinking, he says with a grimace that might be an attempt at a smile. Those men who beat me, they weren't just sending a message. They would have killed me if they hadn't been interrupted by a neighbor. Coming home. I nod, acknowledging this but still skeptical. And you're only sorry because you nearly died? Not because what you did was wrong? No, he says quickly. I've known it was wrong all along. He runs a hand through his hair, wincing as his fingers brush a particularly tender spot on his scalp. I couldn't face it. Couldn't face you. It was easier to pretend I was justified somehow. His admission creates a complicated knot of emotions in my chest. Satisfaction that he recognizes his wrongdoing. Anger that it took so long. Doubt about his sincerity even now. What exactly are you apologizing for, Ryan? I press. Be specific. He takes a deep breath, his battered face solemn. For leaving when you needed me most. For breaking my vows. For making you feel like your illness was a burden. Like you were too much work. And for moving on to Megan before you'd even started your second round of chemo. He pauses, swallowing hard. And for coming back only when I needed something from you. For trying to drag you into my mess. For threatening you when you refused. To help. The comprehensiveness of his apology is unexpected. I'd assumed he would focus on the recent events, not delve into the original wound of his abandonment. I was scared, he continues, his voice quieter now. When you were diagnosed. Terrified, actually. Not just of losing you, but of failing you. Of not being the husband you needed. And instead of facing that fear, instead of being brave for you, I ran. I told myself I was doing you a favor, that you'd be better off without me dragging you down. But that was a lie. The truth is, I ran because I was a coward. The words hit me with surprising force. During the darkest days of treatment, during the long nights when I lay awake wondering why I hadn't been enough for him to stay, I had imagined countless versions of this conversation. Had scripted cutting responses to whatever excuses he might offer. But now, faced with his raw confession, Those rehearsed replies seem inadequate. You hurt me, I say simply, my voice steady despite the emotion building in my chest. Not just my pride or my feelings, you hurt my chances of survival. Patients with strong support systems have better outcomes. That's documented fact. Your leaving made my recovery physically harder. Ryan pales beneath his bruises. I didn't know. Of course you didn't know, I interrupt. Because you didn't stay long enough to find out. You didn't come to a single doctor's appointment, didn't read a single piece of literature about what I was facing. You just decided it was too much and walked away. He looks genuinely stricken, as if this particular aspect of his abandonment hadn't occurred to him before. I'm so sorry, Emma. I know that's not enough. I know nothing can undo what I did. But I am sorry. Truly. I nod, acknowledging his apology without explicitly accepting it. You should go. Find your new life in Costa Rica or wherever. Ryan doesn't move, though, his gaze still fixed on me. Before I go, there's something else I need to tell you. About Westlake Pharmaceuticals. My guard immediately goes up. I told you, I'm not helping you with any scheme involving my clients. It's not that, he says quickly. It's about their new cancer drug, the one they're running clinical trials for. I did research on it before I came to you, looking for an angle. What I found, it's not good, Emma. I fold my arms, skeptical. What do you mean, not good? The preliminary trial results, he explains. They're manipulating the data, making the drug look more effective than it is, downplaying serious side effects. My first instinct is to dismiss this as another manipulation on Ryan's part. But the specificity gives me pause. How would you know that? Those results aren't public. I have sources, he says vaguely. People who owe me favors. The point is, Westlake is pushing a drug that could hurt people like you, cancer patients who are desperate for new treatments. I study his face, trying to determine if this is yet another attempt to involve me in his schemes, or if he's genuinely trying to pass along important information. Do you have proof of this? Actual documents? He nods, reaching for his duffel bag. From an inside pocket, he extracts a USB drive. Everything's on here. Raw trial data, internal emails discussing how to massage the results, even projections, of potential lawsuits they expect once side effects become widely known. They're proceeding anyway because they've calculated that the profits will outweigh the litigation costs. I make no move to take the USB drive. Why are you giving me this? Because you have connections in healthcare now. Because you work with patients directly through your marketing company. Because you can do something with this information that I can't. He holds the drive out to me. Consider it a parting gift. The one good thing to come out of this mess. Cautiously, I accept the USB drive, turning it over in my hand. If what Ryan says is true, this is explosive information. The kind that could save lives, but also the kind that could destroy my relationship with a major client. Why should I believe you? You've lied to me repeatedly. I have, he acknowledges. And you have every reason to be skeptical. But check the data yourself. Verify it independently. You'll see I'm telling the truth about this at least. I pocket the USB drive, not committing to any action but not refusing it either. I'll look into it. Ryan nods, seeming satisfied with this response. That's all I ask. He glances at his watch. I should go. My bus leaves in an hour. Bus? I ask, surprised. I thought you'd be flying to your tropical escape. Eventually, he says. But first I need to get to Seattle. Less conspicuous that way. Harder to track. I can't argue with his logic. Though the thought of Ryan on a public bus with his battered face seems almost comically conspicuous. Do you need a ride to the station? The offer surprises even me as it leaves my mouth. After everything, why am I still willing to help him? In even this small way? That would be... Ryan pauses, seemingly equally surprised. That would be very kind, if it's not too much trouble. It's on my way to the office, I say, though this isn't strictly true. Give me 15 minutes to get ready. As I head upstairs to dress for the day, I find myself in a strange emotional space. Ryan's apology, while perhaps overdue and possibly calculated, has shifted something in me. Not forgiveness, exactly, but perhaps the beginning of closure. The drive to the bus station passes in mostly comfortable silence. Ryan looks out the window at the Portland streets, occasionally commenting on a new building or business that has appeared since he left. I respond with minimal engagement, focusing on the road, on the practical task of delivering him to his departure point. When we arrive at the station, I pull into a loading zone and put the car in park. This is it, I say unnecessarily. Ryan nods, gathering his duffel bag from the floor. Thank you for the ride, for letting me stay, for everything. You're welcome, I reply formally, keeping my hands on the steering wheel, my gaze forward. He hesitates, his hand on the door handle. I know you probably don't want to hear this, but I need to say it anyway. I did love you, Emma. That wasn't a lie. I just wasn't strong enough to love you the way you deserved. The words hit me with unexpected force. For so long, I had assumed his love had been an illusion, a performance. To consider that it might have been real, just insufficient, creates a new dimension to my grief. Goodbye, Ryan, I say softly, still not looking at him. He opens the door and steps out, then leans down to meet my eyes one last time. Goodbye, Emma. I hope you find someone worthy of you, someone braver than I was. And then he's gone, walking into the station with his battered face and his single bag, heading toward a new life far from Portland, far from me. I sit in the car for several long minutes, processing what just happened, what it means. There's a finality to this goodbye that was missing from our divorce, from all previous interactions. Something has been completed, a circle closed. The thought is both freeing and melancholy. Finally, I put the car in drive and pull away from the curb, heading toward the office. I have a busy day ahead. Client meetings, a presentation to finalize, the support group tonight at the hospital. Real life, my life, continues. But as I drive, my hand absently touches the pocket where I've placed the USB drive. What if Ryan is telling the truth about Westlake? What if patients are being put at risk by a pharmaceutical company more concerned with profits than safety? It's a question I'll have to address, but not today. Today is for reclaiming my space, for reconnecting with the life I've built without Ryan. The Westlake information will keep for 24 hours. At the office, Jenna looks up from her desk as I enter, her expression concerned. How's the ex-husband situation? She asks directly. Resolved, I tell her, appreciating her straightforwardness. He's gone. She studies my face. You okay? I consider the question seriously. Am I okay? The answer feels complicated yet simple. Yes, I decide. I'm okay. The morning passes in a blur of productivity. I throw myself into work with renewed focus, grateful for the structured demands of running a business. By lunchtime, I've finalized the presentation for tomorrow's client meeting, responded to all pending emails, and had a productive call with a potential new healthcare client. I'm just considering whether to order in lunch or step out for a quick bite when my phone rings. The caller ID shows Dr. Rivera. Hello? I answer, wondering if there's an issue with my upcoming appointment. Emma, Dr. Rivera's warm voice comes through clearly. I hope I'm not interrupting anything important? Not at all, I assure her. What's up? I wanted to personally remind you about the support group tonight, she says. I know I sent an email, but I'm particularly hoping you'll attend. We have several new members who I think could benefit greatly from hearing your perspective. I'm touched by her personal outreach. I was already planning to come, 7 o'clock, right? Exactly. In the community room on the third floor. She pauses. And how are you doing? I heard through the grapevine that your ex-husband has resurfaced. The grapevine, undoubtedly meaning Sophia, who sees Dr. Rivera for her annual checkups. News travels fast, I observe with a small smile. But yes, he did. It's been complicated. But I think it's resolved now. Complicated is one word for it, Dr. Rivera says, a note of protective concern in her voice. Sophia mentioned he was in some kind of trouble? He was, I confirm, not wanting to get into specifics. But he's left town now. I don't expect to see him again. Good, she says firmly. You've worked too hard to rebuild your life to have him disrupt it now. Her protectiveness warms me. Over the course of my treatment and recovery, Dr. Rivera has become more than just my oncologist. She's become a mentor and friend. I couldn't agree more. After we hang up, I decide to walk to a nearby cafe for lunch, needing fresh air and movement after the emotional intensity of the morning. The October day is crisp but sunny, Portland showing off its autumn colors beneath a clear blue sky. As I walk, I find myself appreciating simple things with renewed awareness. The crunch of leaves beneath my boots, the smell of fresh bread. From a bakery I pass, the distant view of Mount Hood gleaming white against the horizon. These moments of presence, of sensory appreciation, are gifts from my cancer experience. Before my diagnosis, I moved through life at a relentless pace, always focused on the next goal, the next achievement. Now, I'm better at pausing, at savoring the ordinary beauty of being alive. At the cafe, I order a sandwich and a cup of tea, finding a small table by the window where I can people watch while I eat. The normalcy of the scene, students with laptops, business people on lunch breaks, baristas calling out orders, feels reassuring after the disruption of the past few days. My phone buzzes with a text from Sophia. Ex-husband situation handled. Need me to help you burn sage to cleanse his energy from your house? I smile and respond. All handled. He's gone. And maybe on the sage. Couldn't hurt. Her reply comes quickly. Dinner tomorrow? You can give me all the details. Perfect, I text back. My place. I'll cook. As I finish my lunch, my thoughts return to the USB drive in my pocket. If Ryan is telling the truth about Westlake Pharmaceuticals, I have a moral obligation to investigate. But doing so could put my business at risk, could damage a client relationship I've worked hard to build. It's a dilemma without an easy answer. Back at the office, I throw myself into work for the remainder of the afternoon, pushing thoughts of Ryan and Westlake aside until I have time to properly address them. By 5:30, I've cleared my desk and am ready to head to the hospital for the support group. The community room at Pacific Northwest Medical Center is already half full when I arrive. I recognize some faces from previous support groups I've attended, but there are new ones too. Women in various stages of treatment and recovery, their experiences etched in their expressions, in the headscarves some wear, in the careful way others move, protecting surgical sites or accommodating pain. Dr. Rivera spots me and waves me over. Emma, thank you for coming. I want to introduce you to someone. She guides me toward a young woman sitting alone near the back of the room, her posture curled inward as if trying to take up as little space as possible. This is Vanessa. She's just completed her second round of chemo. Vanessa looks up with weary eyes, offering a small smile that doesn't reach them. Hi, she says softly. Vanessa's husband left 3 weeks ago, Dr. Rivera explains gently. I thought talking with you might be helpful. My heart constricts with empathy. 3 weeks into treatment, even earlier in the process than Ryan's departure had been. I'm so sorry, I tell Vanessa, taking the seat beside her. That's incredibly difficult timing. He said he couldn't handle it, Vanessa whispers, her voice cracking slightly. Said he wasn't cut out to be a caregiver. The echo of Ryan's "too much work" sends a pang through me. My ex-husband said something similar, I tell her. It was devastating at the time. How did you get through it? She asks, a desperate hope in her eyes. I consider my answer carefully, wanting to offer genuine comfort without minimizing her pain. One day at a time, I say finally, by leaning on friends, by finding a community of people who understood what I was going through, like this group, and by gradually realizing that his leaving said everything about him and nothing about me. Vanessa nods slowly, tears gathering in her eyes. Everyone keeps telling me I'm better off without him, that if he couldn't handle this, he wasn't worth having around anyway. People mean well when they say that, I acknowledge, but it doesn't make the abandonment hurt any less. Exactly, she says, relief in her voice at being understood. It still feels like rejection, like I failed somehow by getting sick. You didn't fail, I say firmly. Cancer isn't a choice or a personal failing, and neither is someone else's inability to keep their promises. As the support group officially begins, more stories emerge, of partners who stayed but became distant, of friends who disappeared, of family members who offered platitudes instead of practical help. But there are positive stories too, of communities that rallied, of relationships that deepened through crisis, of unexpected support from unlikely sources. I share parts of my journey, careful to focus on the recovery and rebuilding rather than dwelling on Ryan's betrayal. I talk about starting Phoenix Marketing, about how my experience as a patient has informed my approach to healthcare communication, about finding purpose in helping other patients navigate their own journeys. As I speak, I notice Vanessa sitting, straighter, her expression shifting from despair to cautious hope. This, I realize, is why Dr. Rivera wanted me here tonight. Not just to offer comfort, but to provide living proof that there is life beyond cancer, beyond abandonment. That it's possible not just to survive, but to thrive. After the official meeting ends, several women linger to continue conversations. I speak with Vanessa a bit longer, exchanging phone numbers and promising to check in with her before her next treatment. Dr. Rivera catches my eye across the room, mouthing a silent "thank you" that I acknowledge with a nod. By the time I leave the hospital, it's after 9. The autumn night is chilly, stars visible beyond the city lights as I walk to my car. I feel both drained and fulfilled, the way I often do after these group sessions, emotionally spent but spiritually nourished. At home, I go through my evening routine on autopilot, too tired to think about anything beyond the immediate tasks of preparing for bed. It's only as I'm about to turn off my bedside lamp that I remember the USB drive, still in the pocket of the pants I wore today. I retrieve it, turning the small device over in my hand, debating whether to examine its contents now or wait until morning when I'm fresher. Curiosity wins out. I fetch my laptop, insert the drive, and wait as my computer recognizes the new hardware. A folder opens automatically, revealing dozens of files, spreadsheets, PDFs, email threads. I click on one, labeled Executive Summary, and begin to read. What I find confirms Ryan's claims and worse. According to the documents, Westlake's new cancer drug, Oncoril, has shown alarming side effects in approximately 22% of trial participants, significantly higher than the 3% reported in their public-facing documents. More disturbing still, 3 patients died from what appears to be drug-related complications. Yet these deaths were classified as disease progression to avoid regulatory scrutiny. The emails are equally damning, executives discussing how to reframe negative results, how to pressure researchers to focus on positive outcomes, how to structure reports to minimize red flags for the FDA. I read for over an hour, growing increasingly disturbed by what I find. If these documents are authentic, and they certainly appear to be, Westlake is knowingly advancing a dangerous drug, gambling with patients' lives for the sake of profit. The ethical implications are clear. This information needs to reach regulatory authorities before Oncoril receives approval, before it's prescribed to vulnerable patients like those I met tonight at the support group, like Vanessa. But taking action means sacrificing my relationship with Westlake, a major client that accounts for nearly 30% of Phoenix Marketing's current revenue. It means potentially putting my business, my livelihood, at risk. It means making an enemy of a powerful pharmaceutical company with resources far exceeding my own. I close the laptop, too overwhelmed to make a decision tonight. But as I turn, off the light and settle under the covers, I know in my heart what I'll do. Some choices transcend business considerations. Some risks are worth taking. Tomorrow, I'll verify the information independently. I'm not taking Ryan's word at face value, regardless of his apparent sincerity. But if it checks out, I'll act. For Vanessa. For all the patients who deserve better than to be sacrificed on the altar of corporate greed. As I drift towards sleep, I find myself thinking of Ryan, presumably on his way to Seattle by now, planning his escape to a new life. Did he give me this information as a genuine attempt at redemption? Or was it one final manipulation, a way to cause maximum disruption to my life before he disappeared for good? Perhaps his motives don't matter. Perhaps what matters is what I choose to do with the information now that I have it. How I choose to respond to this moral challenge placed in my path. Ryan walked away when facing the challenge of supporting me through cancer. I won't walk away from this challenge, regardless of the personal cost. That, I realize as sleep finally claims me, is the fundamental difference between us. Morning light streams through my bedroom window as I sit at my desk, staring at the documents from the USB drive. I've spent 2 hours cross-referencing information, verifying credentials on the internal memos, checking dates against publicly available FDA filings. Everything aligns. The documents appear genuine. The gravity of what I'm facing settles over me like a heavy cloak. If I take this information to the proper authorities, I'll be burning a bridge with Westlake Pharmaceuticals. Permanently. They'll know the leak came from me. There's no way to anonymize this kind of whistleblowing, not when I'm one of the few people with direct access to their marketing team. I reach for my phone and dial Sophia. Hey, she answers on the second ring. Everything, okay? I need your advice, I tell her. Professional and personal. I'm listening. I explain the situation, the damning documents about Oncoril, the ethical dilemma, the potential impact on my business, without mentioning that Ryan was the source. That detail feels irrelevant to the core issue. Wow, Sophia says when I finish. That's intense. You're sure the information is legitimate? As sure as I can be without hiring a forensic data analyst. The internal email headers check out. The data formats are consistent with Westlake's other documents. The names and titles match their current executive team. She's quiet for a moment, thinking. What does your gut tell you? That I can't sit on this, I say simply. People could die, Sophia. People like me. Like the women in my support group. Then you already know what you have to do, she says. The business consequences are secondary. She's right, of course. I knew the answer before I called her. But hearing it from someone else, someone who understands both the ethical and practical dimensions, solidifies my resolve. What about legally? I ask. Could Westlake come after me somehow? Sue me for defamation or breach of confidentiality? Possibly, Sophia concedes. Her background in corporate law before transitioning to nonprofit work makes her insight valuable. But whistleblower protections exist for exactly this reason, and if the information proves true, any lawsuit would ultimately backfire on them. Still, you should consult an actual attorney before proceeding. We talk for a few more minutes, sketching out a rough plan. First, legal consultation. Then, careful documentation of everything I have. Finally, controlled disclosure to the appropriate regulatory authorities, not a public media blast, but a formal report through proper channels. After hanging up, I call Sandra Green, the attorney who handled my divorce. While not a specialist in pharmaceuticals or whistleblowing, she can at least advise on initial steps and refer me to someone with the right expertise. I spend the rest of the morning at her office, walking through the documents, discussing potential approaches and risks. Sandra listens intently, taking detailed notes, occasionally asking clarifying questions. "This is serious," she says finally, removing her reading glasses and setting them on her desk. "Both the content of what you found and the potential repercussions for your business. I'd like to bring in a colleague who specializes in FDA regulatory issues and corporate whistleblowing. Can you come back tomorrow afternoon?" I agree, leaving copies of key documents with her for review. As I exit her office building, I feel both heavier with responsibility and lighter for having taken concrete action. The path forward is unclear, but at least I'm moving, not paralyzed by indecision. Back at Phoenix Marketing's office, I find Jenna working on layouts for a new project. "Everything okay?" she asks, glancing up. "You look intense." "Just some complex client issues to navigate," I say, not ready to share specifics until I have a clearer plan. "Nothing we can't handle." She studies me for a moment longer, clearly sensing there's more to the story, but doesn't press. "The Westlake team called earlier. They want to move up the presentation for their new patient education materials. Asked if we could do next Monday instead of the following week. The irony isn't lost on me. Designing patient education materials for a company that's hiding dangerous side effects from those same patients. "Tell them we'll need to check our schedule and get back to them," I reply, buying time until after tomorrow's legal consultation. The rest of the day passes in a fog of routine tasks that fail to distract me from the looming decision. By evening, I'm mentally exhausted but no less certain of my course. This isn't just about business ethics or professional integrity. It's personal. Had Oncoril been available during my treatment, I might have been prescribed it. Women like Vanessa, already dealing with the trauma of cancer and abandonment, shouldn't face additional preventable dangers from the very medications meant to save them. I sleep fitfully, waking several times from dreams where I'm trying to warn faceless patients about invisible threats. By morning, I feel more resolved than ever. This is the right thing to do, regardless of consequences. The meeting with Sandra and her colleague, James Wilson, a distinguished attorney specializing in pharmaceutical regulatory law, proves both enlightening and reassuring. James reviews the documents carefully, his expression growing increasingly grave. "These are unquestionably authentic," he confirms, "and unquestionably damning. Westlake has violated multiple FDA regulations and potentially committed fraud." "What's my best course of action?" I ask. "A formal filing with the FDA's Office of Criminal Investigations," he advises. "Simultaneously, we'll submit documentation to the Securities and Exchange Commission as Westlake's misrepresentations affect their stock value and investor information." "And the potential blowback on Emma?" Sandra prompts. James sighs, removing his glasses. "I won't sugarcoat it. There will be consequences. Westlake will almost certainly terminate your contract once they learn you're the whistleblower. They may attempt legal action, though any such effort would likely fail given the strength of this evidence and whistleblower protections." "What about my other clients?" I ask, voicing my deepest concern. "Could this damage Phoenix Marketing's reputation more broadly?" "It could go either way," he admits. "Some clients might distance themselves, fearing similar scrutiny. Others might respect your ethical stance. It's impossible to predict with certainty." I nod, appreciating his honesty. "And if I do nothing? If I just delete these files and pretend I never saw them?" James's expression turns solemn. then you become complicit in potential harm to patients, and you'd have to live with that knowledge. The choice, when framed that way, isn't really a choice at all. Let's proceed, I tell them. I want to file the reports as soon as possible. The next 48 hours become a whirlwind of detailed preparations. James and his team help me organize the documentation, prepare formal statements, and navigate the complex filing procedures for both the FDA and SEC. Every document is carefully reviewed, every statement precisely worded to maximize impact while minimizing potential legal vulnerability. Throughout this process, I maintain a facade of business as usual. I respond to Westlake's emails about the rescheduled presentation, even attend a conference call with their marketing team to discuss upcoming campaigns. The duality feels strange, collaborating professionally with people whose company I'm about to report for dangerous practices. But on Friday afternoon, everything changes. James calls to inform me that the filings are complete, the reports submitted to both agencies with all supporting documentation. They've acknowledged receipt, he tells me. Now we wait. How long? I ask. Hard to say. Could be days, could be weeks before the initial response. But given the severity of the allegations and the quality of evidence, I'd expect relatively quick action. I thank him and hang up, a curious mixture of dread and relief washing over me. It's done. The wheels are in motion. Whatever comes next, I've made my choice. I decide to close the office early, giving Jenna the rest of the afternoon off. You sure? She asks, clearly noticing my distracted state. Positive. Go enjoy the sunshine while it lasts. October in Portland. Who knows when we'll see blue skies again? After she leaves, I sit alone in my office, gazing out at the city skyline, trying to process the enormity of what I've just done. Have I just torpedoed the business I've worked so hard to build, or taken a moral stand that, regardless of professional consequences, I'll never regret? My phone buzzes with a text from Dr. Rivera. Just checking in. How are you holding up after everything with Ryan? The message reminds me that I haven't told her about the Westlake situation. Should I? As both a medical professional and someone who refers patients to clinical trials, she'd have a stake in knowing about potentially dangerous medications. But sharing details before the investigation officially begins could complicate matters. I opt for transparency without specifics. Managing. Actually dealing with some significant professional challenges right now. Can we talk next week? Her reply comes quickly. Of course, my door is always open. The weekend passes in a strange limbo. I throw myself into household projects, reorganizing my home office, planting fall bulbs in the garden, deep cleaning the kitchen. Physical tasks that require attention but little emotional energy, leaving my mind free to process the seismic shift occurring in my professional life. Sophia and David come over for dinner on Saturday as planned. I tell them about the filings, about James's predictions of potential fallout. They listen supportively, offering both practical advice and emotional reassurance. You've done the right thing, David says simply. Whatever happens next, hold on to that. And remember you're not alone, Sophia adds. We're here. Your support group is here. You've built a community that won't abandon you. The contrast with Ryan's abandonment during my illness isn't lost on any of us, though we don't explicitly name it. The symmetry feels significant. I was left alone to face cancer, but I'm surrounded by support as I face this new challenge. Monday arrives with no word from either regulatory agency, but I hadn't expected immediate action. What does arrive, however, is a calendar notification for the rescheduled Westlake presentation, now just 1 week away. I stare at it, wondering if I'll still be working with Westlake by then, or if the investigation will have already blown everything apart. I decide to proceed as if the presentation will happen, directing my team to finalize the materials, to polish the slides, to prepare handouts. It feels surreal, like planning a party for someone you know won't attend. But maintaining normalcy seems important, both for my staff and for my own sanity. Tuesday passes uneventfully. Wednesday brings a brief email from James confirming that both agencies have formally initiated reviews of the submitted materials. Thursday dawns bright and clear, a crisp autumn day that belies the tension I'm carrying. I'm in a client meeting, when my phone buzzes repeatedly with incoming calls, all from Westlake's corporate headquarters. I excuse myself briefly to check the voicemail that follows. Ms. Taylor, this is Thomas Reeves, General Counsel for Westlake Pharmaceuticals. I need to speak with you immediately regarding certain allegations that have come to our attention. Please call my office as soon as possible. So it begins. The regulatory agencies must have made initial contact with Westlake, sharing the source of the information. I text James immediately, alerting him to the contact attempt. His response is swift. Don't return the call directly. I'll reach out to their legal team as your representative. By that afternoon, the situation has escalated dramatically. Westlake has terminated our contract, effective immediately. A formal letter arrives via courier, citing irreconcilable differences in professional ethics and breach of confidentiality clauses. James assures me the termination is expected and likely legally unenforceable given the whistleblower context. But the practical impact is immediate. 30% of Phoenix Marketing's revenue has just vanished. Moreover, the pharmaceutical industry is tightly networked. News will spread quickly. Other clients may follow Westlake's lead, distancing themselves from potential controversy. I call an emergency staff meeting, gathering my small team in the conference room. They deserve to know what's happening, to understand the potential instability ahead. I explain the situation as clearly as I can. The discovery of dangerous practices at Westlake, my ethical obligation to report them, the likely business consequences. I want to be transparent, I conclude. The next few months could be difficult financially for Phoenix. I'll do everything possible to maintain our operations and protect your jobs, but you should know what we're facing. Jenna speaks first, her expression resolute. You did the right thing? I'd have done the same. Mark, our graphic designer, nods agreement. We're with you, Emma, however this plays out. Their support brings unexpected tears to my eyes. Thank you, I manage. That means more than you know. Over the next week, events unfold with breathtaking speed. The FDA announces a formal investigation into Oncaril's clinical trials, suspending the approval process pending review. Westlake's stock plummets as news breaks about potential data manipulation. Business publications run features on pharmaceutical ethics and the role of marketing in healthcare communications. And through it all, Phoenix Marketing weathers the storm. Yes, we lose another client, a medical device company nervous about association with controversy. But remarkably, 2 new clients reach out specifically because of the stand I've taken, seeking marketing partners with demonstrated ethical boundaries. Dr. Rivera calls, having connected the dots between the Westlake investigation and my earlier message about professional challenges. You did this, she says. Not a question, but a statement. You reported Oncaril's issues. I had to, I reply simply. You may have saved lives, she tells me, her voice thick with emotion. Including patients I would have referred to those trials. Thank you isn't adequate, but it's all I have. Thank you, Emma. Her words validate everything. The risk, the potential business damage, the stress of the past 2 weeks. If even one patient is spared a dangerous treatment because of my actions, it's worth whatever professional price I pay. A month after. The initial filings, James calls with an update. The FDA investigation is proceeding, and they're finding even more issues than what we initially reported. The SEC has also opened a formal inquiry into Westlake's investor communications. You should know, they're considering you for a whistleblower award under the SEC program. An award? I ask, confused. Financial compensation, he explains. When whistleblower information leads to successful enforcement actions, the SEC can award between 10% and 30% of sanctions collected. Given Westlake's size and the scope of potential fraud, this could be substantial. The irony isn't lost on me. I reported Westlake because it was ethically necessary, potentially at significant cost to my business. Now that same action might bring financial reward. What happens next? I ask. More investigation, possibly formal hearings. It could be a year or more before final resolution. But Emma, he pauses, you should be proud. What you did took courage. Courage. The word echoes in my mind long after we hang up. Isn't that what Ryan said he lacked? The courage to stand by me during cancer treatment? The courage to face difficult circumstances without running away? I think about the different paths our lives have taken since our marriage ended. Ryan, presumably now in Costa Rica or some similar haven, starting over with his emergency funds, forever looking over his shoulder for both legal authorities and Volkov's men. And me, still here in Portland, facing the consequences of moral choices head-on, surrounded by a community that supports rather than abandons. That evening, I attend the regular support group at the hospital. Vanessa is there, looking stronger than when we first met, her head now covered with a colorful scarf that brightens her complexion. After the formal session ends, she approaches me. I wanted to thank you, she says. After we talked last time, I reached out to some old friends I'd been avoiding since the diagnosis. They've been amazing, taking me to appointments, bringing meals, just being there. I was so afraid of being a burden that I wasn't letting anyone help. I'm glad you're getting support, I tell her sincerely. My doctor mentioned something else, she continues, about a cancer drug called Oncoril. She said I should be grateful I wasn't enrolled in those trials, that someone had reported problems with it. She didn't name names, but the way she looked at me, I wondered if maybe it was you. I hesitate, not wanting to self-aggrandize, but not wanting to lie either. Let's just say I was in a position to help, so I did. Vanessa studies me for a moment, then nods, understanding. That's what I thought. She reaches out to squeeze my hand briefly. Thank you for everything. As I drive home after the meeting, I find myself reflecting on how dramatically my life has changed in just 18 months. From devastated cancer patient abandoned by her husband to successful business owner making consequential ethical decisions. From someone defined by loss to someone defined by purpose. At home, I pour a glass of wine and step out onto my back patio, gazing up at the clear night sky. It's cold enough now that my breath forms small clouds in the air, but I don't mind. The chill feels clarifying, a reminder that I'm here, alive, making choices that matter. My phone buzzes with an incoming text. Unknown number, but the message instantly identifies the sender. Saw the news about Westlake. Proud of you. Stay safe. R. Ryan. Somehow keeping tabs on events from wherever he's hiding. I consider responding, but ultimately decide against it. There's nothing more to say between us. His chapter in my life is closed. Instead, I turn off my phone and continue gazing at the stars, feeling a profound sense of peace wash over me. Not everything is resolved. Phoenix Marketing still faces financial challenges, the Westlake investigation continues to unfold, and I carry physical and emotional scars from both cancer and abandonment. But I've discovered something essential about myself through these trials. I am not defined by what happens to me, but by how I respond, by the choices I make when facing difficult circumstances, by my willingness to stand firm rather than run away when things get hard. Cancer didn't break me. Ryan's betrayal didn't break me, and whatever comes next won't break me either, because I've built something stronger than any individual crisis. A life founded on integrity, supported by genuine community, and guided by purpose. As autumn leaves swirl around my feet and stars shimmer overhead, I raise my glass in a silent toast, not to survival, though I have certainly survived, but to living fully, truthfully, and without fear. To embracing both the pain and joy that make a life complete. To the understanding that sometimes being too much work for the wrong people creates space to become exactly who you're meant to be. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories, right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.